Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Black Lives Matter blacked out episode of ENN. It's ENN number 32. Welcome one, welcome all. I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy. I hope you're good, both physically and mentally. It's a very interesting time in the world right now. There's a lot of angst, a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety. But we are here for you. And before we started, our discussions and our prep for this episode, there was a little bit of debate amongst us, internal debate and group debate as to how we should go about with this episode. Should we even record an episode at all? Should we, skip over it and wait until, things are a little bit more settled? And we've just been wondering whether our contributions to your lives are enough in this time of a lot of serious issues. So we decided that, our contributions are valuable. They're valuable to us as individuals, and we hope that they are valuable to you. There is this saying in a lot of media in which people describe the content they put out as an escape from reality. However, in this time, we've decided not to escape from reality, but to face it with bravery. Our hearts are pure. We only have good intentions, and each and every one of us wants to contribute to making this world a better place for you, for our fellow citizens, our fellow men, our families, ourselves, our community. And we hope that this discussion that we'll delve into will be enriching for you. We hope that it will be entertaining as well. We hope that as the film lovers that you are, you will gain some education and some knowledge and some information about how the Black experience intertwines with storytelling in the cinematic medium. So it is with humility and with grace that we ask you to listen with open hearts, enjoy this discussion with us. It's going to be a very positive discussion. And as has been said in one of my favorite films, Batman v Superman, on this earth, every act is a political act. And so it's in that spirit that we've decided that we do have to act and we do have to contribute to the discussion. So joining me on this exciting episode going forward are our two usual homeboys, the best of the best, my good friends, Christian and Paul. Hey, Christian, how are you doing?
Hey, Lupe, and as usual, that's a difficult introduction to live up to, but it's been tough, man. Living in the United States in 2020, a first world country that should have everything. Mm-hmm. It's been tough. We've botched the reaction to COVID. We've botched the test and trace since then. Now we have states that are opening up like they don't care. And then we see what we just saw. And I'm not proud of my country at the moment. I'm not. So we're talking about being honest and passionate and everything. There it is. I'm just, as of right now, I'm not proud to be an American. I love my country. I would die for this country. I would fight for this country, but I'm just not proud of us right now. I'm really not. So I'm happy that we can talk about this, that we can distract ourselves a little bit with some movie talk too, and some entertainment talk, but that we can also have some real talk as well.
Absolutely. Yes, we're definitely going to get into it. And Paul, what's up, Paul?
Hey guys, yeah, no, on a personal level, I can't complain, but you can't avoid the turmoil out there. There's obviously a lot going on in the world. I'm in Canada. I'm not in the U.S., but the U.S. is a huge part of our news cycle, and obviously this is these events are having a global ripple, right? So there's obviously a lot going on and a lot to talk about. So happy to be here with you guys to talk about it tonight.
All right. So this is going to be our rundown of topics for this week in 32. So we're going to start on quite a somber and serious note, and we're going to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement. We're going to talk about what it means to each and every one of us, why this moment is important, why it's important to engage and be active and conscious in this moment. We're going to talk about how the Black experience is intertwined so deeply in film and cinema. Then we're going to talk about some of our favorite films that encapsulate the Black experience. And we're going to focus specifically on a very underrated film called Detroit. I have been championing this film since it came out. Paul and Christian have also seen it. So we're going to have a little mini review of it. As we normally do, we're going to get technical, but we're also going to get very subjective and personal as to our feelings about the film. Then we're also going to discuss HBO Max and its launch, the reception. Has it been a success? Has it been a failure? Is it somewhere in the middle? And what's the prognosis going forward? Then we're going to end our episode by talking about the AyerCut. The Snyder Cut is coming. We're excited. We're still happy about that, but the AyerCut has been gaining a little bit of steam, and there was a very interesting reveal that we would like to discuss and the wider implications of that for the DCEU. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So we're at a very interesting time in our lives right now, and the political landscape is aflame. Cities are unrest. It's not just something that's happening in the US. This is a global movement. This is a movement that has been embraced by people all over the world. And it's a rally behind the cry of Black Lives Matter. Now, the most sort of alarming thing about this whole thing is, how can a statement Black Lives Matter be controversial? Like, why is that a controversial statement? Why do some people find it so hard to even say Black Lives Matter? That is the case, and that means that there's a problem. And the problem is the scourge of white supremacy. Like, we're living in systems that are affected by a legacy that has been passed down from generation to generation. And the truth of the matter is that we really haven't seriously addressed these issues. We really haven't taken a hard look at our systems, at our societies, at our cultures, at organizations, at our economies and our political systems to rid ourselves of the scourge of white supremacy. And for years and years, Black people have, cried out and have, sounded the alarm and said, there is a lot of injustice going on around us. A lot of times it really boils over when you see a Black life unjustly taken by police officers. But it's not just police brutality alone. Police brutality tends to be the flashpoint because you can see a life being taken and stolen from our communities, from the world unjustly. But this is a bigger issue. It's about social injustice, discrimination, racism that just permeates our society on so many levels. It's really, really, really disturbing. So this moment, the center of our focus has been, George Floyd, who was brutally and callously slain in the streets while he begged for his life. He was slain by a white police officer, and he was he cried for his life. Like, it's something that really touched a lot of people, because in a lot of other instances it seems like it's not been so cut and dry for a lot of people, and there have been ways to make excuses, which is one of the worst things that has been happening over the years. But in this instance, there's just no way for anyone to excuse this one away. There are no excuses you can make. And So people have taken to the streets. People are protesting. There have been violent protests. There have been riots. There's been looting, which is horrible. There have been attacks. And everybody is has gotten to the point where we're saying enough is enough. And I think at this point in time, it's very important for anyone who is against racism, discrimination, social injustice to get active and to get engaged. It's not enough to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist, because if you stand by in silence and you let these things continue to happen, you are helping them happen. I can give an analogy. If you're walking down the street and someone is getting attacked, and you don't say anything, you don't try to intervene, you don't try to call anyone, you are helping the perpetrator of the attack to have a safe environment to commit their attack. So it's not enough to say, oh, I'm not racist, I'm a good person, and that's it. You have to be active. You have to, whatever way you can contribute, even if all you can contribute is just letting your voice get heard, or talking to your Black friends, finding out how they are mentally. If all you can do is tweet Black Lives Matter, if all you can do is teach your children, your family, those around you to have better values when it comes to this, then you are being active and you're engaging. And in this time it's necessary, because for so many years we have all said, oh, racism should not be amongst us. We are always appalled when we see anything racist, but it's time for us to get active. Ignoring it, not talking about it, hasn't worked. And so it's time for us to, each and every one of us, to get active and to be brave and come with a good heart, with humility, with all the goodness and graciousness that's inside of you. And let's all, hold hands together and work to just wipe this scourge away from this earth, because this is not the way that we should live as a people, as a population, as a human race. And I will end my opening monologue there, and I'd like to hand the baton over to Christian. Christian, what do you think about sort of the movement as it's happening now, what you have seen, and what you have heard from people around you?
This, living outside New York City, I live in a melting pot. And in some ways, I'm very lucky because I live in that melting pot. In another way, I'm unlucky because I also get to hear the other side of it, because you get to hear both sides. You get to hear the people that are fighting for it. And you also get to hear the racist prejudice side of things as well. But that's important to hear too, isn't it? It's good to hear them talking as well. It's anger inducing. It's what I said to you at the beginning when we first talked. I'm almost embarrassed. I'm not proud of my country right now, and I'm not proud of the way we are. And there's two things that come to mind from what you just talked about. Number one, the first thing that comes to mind is you're 100% right. We need to move beyond speaking, talking, and acknowledging that this is happening to actually changing the system. And I think it's very American to want to do that. It's the Boston Tea Party. It's the Revolutionary War. It's, women's liberation and them getting the vote and all that kind of stuff, ending slavery. Those are very American things to do, to question the system and to say the fucking system isn't working right now and we need to make a difference. That's okay. That's what we do. That's why America exists. That's why we're a little unique. I understand that all our freedoms aren't necessarily unique, but the Constitution of the United States is a very unique document in the world today. And because it gives us, the people, to have that ability to be able to make a change to the system, but we have to do it together. And it's really hard to do, as other people have pointed out, but it can be done. But one thing I will say, you did mention we need to move beyond just words. You're right. However, the one thing I am happy about is that I am having more of these conversations with people that are more comfortable to have them than ever before. And,
Mm-hmm.
where nobody wanted to talk about it, but now we're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to stop it. That's not going to end it. That's not going to solve everything. But for the love of God, don't end this momentum like that. We need to be able to continue to have these conversations. My nephew he just started his first year of college, and my nephew is whiter than white. He really is. He's 6 foot some odd tall kid, but he came out as gay about a year ago, and he's extremely active in the LGBTQT community, and he's faced his own issues in school because he goes to a school that is big football player presence and everything like that, and he's had to be careful with what he says and what he does, but overall has been pretty supportive, but he has had people go against him, and he participated this week in a march in town, and I was really, really proud of him. They did their social distancing, they wore their masks, there were 3 cops that walked with them. And I thought that was fantastic. And they went right down the main street in town, and big Black Lives Matter and they did a wonderful job. I was really proud of them for doing it. My sister's going to be doing something this weekend too. So I think what you're saying is correct. We need to move away from words and start getting into actions. But I am happy that people are talking about it more than they did before. The second thing we talked about a little off the pod, and I don't want to take away from Paul's time, but my mother grew up in Newark. And Newark, New Jersey was one of the epicenters of the race riots in the 60s. And my mother was, she marched and she did what she needed to do. And my mom was very active, let's say, with certain things. And my father came from Scranton, Pennsylvania, so he wasn't quite as active. And my mother was always more liberal than my father, but she changed him as years went on. And, my father became a lot more like my mother. And my mom passed away a couple of years back. And I was having a frank conversation with my father this week about all this. And I was like, Dad, what kind of memories does this bring up for you, going through the race riots and everything? And he said, it pisses me off because nothing's changed. I thought we made a difference. I thought we changed everything. And obviously we didn't. So that's coming from a white dude, looking at it saying, I really thought we made a difference, but apparently we didn't, because the shit is still happening. And I could sense from my very mild-mannered father, who rarely swears and never says anything bad about anybody, getting all fired up on the other end of the phone. He feels that they failed, that his generation failed. And they, in a sense, maybe they did, but it's never stopped. This is never, we felt that we moved on, right? The 80s, we had the big corporate, and then we had 9/11, and we had the war against terror. We had all these other things that we were doing, but this shit never went away. It never left. It was always there. And people, I heard the stupid comments coming from people. Well, Obama got elected. Get the fuck out of here. You think that solved anything? That didn't solve a goddamn thing. That it still was there. And the shit I heard about that man every time he opened his mouth to say something. The vile shit. Go ahead. What you're going to say, Lupe?
As a matter of fact, it seems like Obama getting elected raised a lot of bigots and racists who are in hiding. It brought them out in full force, because there's been a backlash against it, and it's very disheartening. As a matter of fact, just put this into context, and this is part of how Black people feel about the world that we walk in. Obama had to be the most perfect human being to become president. He had to have gone to the best schools. He had to have been top of his class, head of the Harvard Law Review, been a senator, been so well spoken, not have a single blemish on his record, walk, talk, do everything presidential, be basically it's like you created somebody in a lab. That's how good a Black person had to be president. But before him, you had George Bush, who, no offense, when you hear him talk, he sounds like he's not the most intelligent person. I don't want to get too harsh on him.
The Bushisms.
And then you come over to Donald Trump, who people said they elected him because he wasn't qualified. People actually said they elected him because he was not someone who was qualified for the job, because he doesn't speak very well, because he sounds like, quote unquote, one of us. you know. But then the person who was a black person who got the job had to be absolutely perfect. So
Yeah.
that is part of this issue that we are all dealing with right now, and the frustration that a lot of black people feel when black people talk about white privilege and talk about white supremacy. It's things like this that stare us right in the face, that make black people feel that we're just not existing on the same level playing field. We're not competing on the same level playing field.
I think that's really important, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, people, and I apologize for interrupting you, Lupe.
No,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
It's, you know, people, I think they mistake racism for prejudice, and those are two, they are not necessarily the same thing. Racism is systemic. It starts from the top and it's institutional, has been there forever. Prejudice is different. It took me a long time. I'm going to be 40 this year. And my mother and father raised me, I think, right. I really do believe they did. But they also insulated me from certain things. And it wasn't until I got into my 30s and I started talking with more people and my friends decided that they didn't have to hide and they could say certain things, that I felt that I realized more things and I understood. And I'll never understand certain things. Let's be honest. I won't. It's just not going to happen. There are certain things I won't understand because I don't have to experience them. And I don't have to be held to a different standard. So I'm just simply not going to understand it. But those are the differences. Many people are not prejudiced, but they're still racist. Like when I hear somebody turn around, well, I have black friends. That's great. That means that you're not prejudiced against them. That's fantastic. But you may still support a racist system and you're benefiting from it. Do me a favor and at least just recognize that you are, even if you're not going to do a fucking thing about it. Just turn around and recognize that it's a problem. Please. That's all you have to do. Well, that's not all you have to do, but that's the start. It's, I apologize. I didn't mean to get, I'm sorry. I'm going off on a tangent.
No, you're getting as passionate as it requires, because as we've said, we've gotten to a point where it's just like enough is enough. Enough is enough. We need to move forward, because one thing a lot of people don't realize, it's funny because I keep thinking of this line. It's a horrible line, which I don't like, which doesn't make sense. But in Avengers, when Bruce Banner turns into Hulk and he says, "I'm always angry." Black people are always under mental duress. Like, people just don't realize it. Like, your black friends are always under some sort of mental duress, and even if they aren't, they're trying to be. Just dealing with the way the world is. Obviously, you have to pick yourself up. Everybody says, "Oh, pick yourself by your bootstraps and move on." Yes, you have to do that, but it's not fun doing it when somebody's stepping on one of your laces and you're trying to tie them, trying to strap up your boots, and someone is stepping on one of your laces. And it's like I always say, like, people say, "Oh, you know what? Everybody's got problems. I've got problems too. It's not like just because I was born white, I was given a silver spoon." No, you weren't. Life is difficult. Everybody's dealing with COVID. Like, COVID doesn't care if you're yellow, white, or black. Right. It's gonna fuck you up if it gets a hold of you. It's hard to, get a great job in society and maintain a stable family and a stable relationship. And you have to be a go-getter and you have to work hard. That goes for everyone. But then add on top of that a huge dose of racism. That's what black people are going through. That's the way you got to look at it. Don't just look at it as, "Oh, we all have problems." Yes, we do. But imagine if all the problems you had, added on top of that, was you being black. And it might not be something like, oh, people, like, you get rejected for jobs, which it has been proven that happens. A lot of black people have to change their names when they're applying for jobs, whether it's true or not. That happens. But let's not even say it's anything like that, because if you're very qualified for a job, fingers crossed you're going to get the job. But it could be, other things like going into a store and you have to, act differently, or you have to dress a particular way to be looked at as equal to someone who can just casually just go about their day and just live their life carefree without any of these burdens. Or you're in a neighborhood and you're getting weird looks, or police are asking you what you're doing in the neighborhood. Or, I mean, the traumatic, event of being stopped by police and wondering if you make a move, it's going to be, your last, So anyway, I'm taking your time, and Paul has even chimed in.
No, and I want Paul to chime in, so I don't want to take up too much time. But you're absolutely right, and the people. My friends have spoken a number of times. We talked about it before we started recording about code switching and having to act a different way and be a certain way. And I've always like, well, you don't have to do that around me. And they're like, yeah, I kind of do.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, it's not just you, Chris, it's everybody. I got to do it. I'm sorry. I have to. And, I've heard the reports, and everybody has, and you've read the reports. We've all seen how COVID in the United States has affected communities of color, especially across this country. And I've seen way too many people blow that off. Don't fucking blow that off, because you can't just turn around and say, oh, it's because they have more heart disease or diabetes or this. Why do you think that's the case? Because they don't take care of themselves? Sure, there are some people that are just going to eat cheeseburgers and shit. White people do that too. That's going to happen. But there's a difference there. It is a problem from the top down. The lack of access to healthcare, the lack of everything that you just spoke about. It's a problem. And it's not them. They didn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, again, there are individuals that do shit to themselves. I understand that. Some people smoke too much and drink too much and eat too much. Yes, of course, there's going to be that. I'm talking about it as a whole. So all I know is that we have an opportunity. I don't even necessarily want to get into why somebody would agree with looting and somebody wouldn't. I don't even want to have that conversation necessarily. But I think that we have an opportunity now, maybe, to make more people aware of this. And one of the things that have really been touched by is what we're seeing across the world and the people that are marching across the world. And they're not saying, what's so awesome is they're not like, fuck America. They're not saying that. They're saying, we are standing with you, that there are people in your country that want change, and we do too. We see it. We see it. You're better than this. You can do this. And that's really touched me.
Yeah, I think us as Americans, like I'm an American living in the UK, and we take for granted the fact that a lot of people outside of the US see us as the great hope of the human race. Because, as you said, of the promise of the American dream, of how we're a melting pot. Like, the American society we are the country of tomorrow. Like Superman is the man of tomorrow. America is the country of the future. It's how everyone in the world feels like countries would look in the future. Very, very, the human race walking as one, together, free, being given the opportunity to be the best that you can be in a system that's designed to give freedom to everyone. And so whenever we come up short, everyone in the world is paying attention, because the idea is, if America can't get it right, then wow.
All right.
Then what's going to happen, elsewhere? And the issue of Black Lives Matter is not just an American issue. It's an issue all over the world. Like, the scourge of white supremacy has infected the entire world, and it's because of the terrible history that we've had to deal with. And when I say we, I'm not just talking about Black people. Black and white people, we're both suffering from this, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. Like, we're all suffering from this, because if Black people are not happy, and if Black people have any sort of anger in them, this entire world is gonna feel it. It's like, if you have a house, a family, and one of your children isn't happy, even if it's the least of them, like, everybody's gonna feel that pain. So we're all suffering from it, because everybody likes to say, oh, we're all the same. Yes, we are, and that's what I mean by we. And so we all have to work together, to solve this. But let's hear what Paul has to say about the Black Lives Matter moment that we're experiencing now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Paul. I apologize, by the way.
I was just enjoying listening, guys. It's hard to know what to say. It's hard to follow that, quite honestly, because you guys both made a lot of valid points. It's very difficult for me to speak, I guess, intelligently on it, because I'm a white guy from Canada. I'm not, I'm not Black. I don't have that experience. I'm not living in the U.S. I'm not in the heart of it. So what I'm seeing is is through social media, and that's not to say things like this don't exist in Canada, but it's, at least, from my little personal bubble that I live in, it's not something I see or notice on a daily basis. But one of the things with this is it's eye-opening, and it's a reminder that these are still very real problems. And if you have an illusion that this was going away or getting better, it's a stark reminder that no, this is still a very real issue. And even having traveled through the U.S. Somewhat, you can see in certain areas how this very much is still a problem, more openly perhaps than you might see it in other places. So, as I say, it's difficult. It's difficult for me to comment on it or to try to put myself in those shoes. But I think it's important to listen, to show support, to show a willingness to learn, to examine your own thoughts, beliefs, behaviors. Make sure that what you're doing is part of the solution and not contributing to the problem. And really, it's not an easy problem to solve. Obviously, these are systemic issues that have existed for a long time. There's no easy fix, right? And
Yeah, you're right.
so, you do what you can. You try to be a positive influence in your social circle, in your area of influence. Beyond that, it is a bit of a challenge to know what to say or do. And as I say, that's why something like this is a bit of an opportunity to listen, learn, try to figure out what it is you can say or do, when to speak and when to shut up and listen, right? So, it's as I say, I'm 44, and I've I've lived a fair chunk of life, and there's still no easy answers. It's not like suddenly you're going to wake up and have the the maturity and the the perfect answer, right? You're not going to have this epiphany of how to solve the world's problems. This is not something easily dealt with. So I think, as I say, it's hard to watch. It's unfortunate. You just try to as I say, try to self-examine, try to show support where you can, and not overstep or make false assumptions or say something that's insensitive when you might be well-meaning, but it could be interpreted incorrectly. So there's a lot of a lot of considerations, but I think it's important that you, where there's clear issues of right and wrong, that you make sure you're on the side of what's right. And I don't know, other than that, how much more I have to add to it. I mean, you guys have gone into a fairly in-depth conversation. I'm not sure how much more there's to say, but go on, Lupe.
Yeah, I think that's a really good. You really raised good points, and just combining what both you and Christian said. Christian harped on something which is very important: starting conversations, right? And you harped on two things which are important. The first is that there are no easy answers. There's no magic pill that we all need to swallow and wow, we wake up the next day and we live in a utopia. No. The saying, the revolution will not be televised. Like, a lot of people wonder, it's a cool ass saying. I mean, it sounds so cool, but people don't understand what the revolution will not be televised means. Is that the revolution will be in the hearts of people. It's going to be a cultural revolution, something that's going to sweep through the nation, through the world, but it's not something that you will be able to tangibly see happening. And I think that that's how we can have long-lasting change, is by having discussions and beginning to change culture. And, we talked about this, before we started recording, that it's very important that people who were idle before, who were a bit apathetic or who were inactive, start to engage, and even engaging in conversations with people around them, making your stance known. What you're doing is you're changing the culture. You're influencing people within your sphere, and that culture change, that is what is going to lead to long-lasting change in the future. Like there's this hilarious story that I talk about. You know, like a couple years ago, a friend of mine and his girlfriend were at my place, and we're having a discussion, and somehow it got to talking about Hispanics. And this guy, he was a white guy. It was and his girlfriend, she said she called Hispanics a racial slur. And I immediately told her that that was not okay. I told her she was not allowed to use that language, and I kicked her out of my apartment. I told her that, I told her, I like you, but this is a no-go zone for that kind of behavior. And I told her boyfriend that he had to, talk to her and, that sort of thing. So a lot of times when people are in positions like that, because it doesn't affect them, they just either let it slide or they engage in the laughter and they laugh at it. But we need to start getting to the point where it's not just that, oh no, I'm not racist, against, Hispanics. I wouldn't, call them by names that, demean their humanity and strip them of their dignity. We all need to be anti-racist and actively make our values known and teach our values to our friends and our children and our cousins and our uncles and even people around us who may have bigoted views. And that's how we can make long-lasting change. I think that you guys raised really good points.
That's a good point, Lupe. I mean, it's, like I've been on that side as well. And I've been in that, the group where you just smile. Mm-hmm. And, I got a couple of friends that I know are good dudes. Look, they are, but it makes you wonder when they fire out a bunch of slurs. Mm-hmm. And I've been at barbecues and stuff where they have no problem using a Hispanic slur, and I have a Latino wife. They have no problem dropping an M-bomb when they're having conversations, because it's in private company, right? So it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay. But but I think you got to change on certain things. I have a friend who, I don't want to say her name because she does listen to the podcast, but she'll know who she is, has been pretty active with causes like my nephew's, with gay and lesbian, yes. And we were at dinner years ago. This is a while ago. This is before my nephew came out. And I dropped the fag bomb in a conversation. And she took me aside after dinner, was like, I just want to let you know I'm really uncomfortable with that. You can't talk like that around me. And I'm like, yeah, but you got boyfriends and stuff. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. She's like, yeah, I know. It really makes me uncomfortable. Now, she wasn't a bitch about it. She absolutely not. She was just, I'm telling you as a friend, it really bothers me, and I want you to know that it bugs me. And you should think about that more often. And you know what? I don't use that word. And that was before my nephew came out. I stopped using it, especially when I was younger and I was in sports in high school. That word came out constantly. Yeah. All the time. That word came out. I stopped in my 30s, and it will not be used for the rest of my life. And it started with her. It started with that girl. So, and now it's only strengthened because I have a family member who is in that community. So, and I can tell you that word's been used as a slur against him, and he now uses it basically as a term of empowerment. He'll be like, yeah, I am the fag. Like that's what he'll do.
It's like the N word. How we say N word? Yeah, it's a good human strategy.
Yeah, and he's a good kid. My nephew's a great kid, but I also know that this has been tough on him. I know it has. It's not easy, and it's not easy getting ready to go to college and all that kind of stuff. And you'll experiment and have fun with shit, but it's still not easy. But I think what you said, and I'll shut up now, is very important, because it can start with one person. We don't realize that, but it absolutely can start with one person.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so guys, I would like us to before we go on to talking about the films that we like, I would like us to talk about something important in this issue. I think that we'll be remiss not to talk about this in particular. It's the issue of the Black Lives Matter slogan versus All Lives Matter. And I will start the conversation because I think that is something that has been quite controversial. So the first point that I'll make is that if we live in a world where saying Black Lives Matter is controversial, then there is a huge problem. That's the first thing. Just logically, if we live in a world where when you say Black Lives Matter, there are people who jump to stop you from saying that, to steer the conversation in another direction, that's a huge problem. Now, people say, oh, no, all lives matter. Well, that's a fact of life. Like, we all know that those are the basic tenets of all our societies, that all lives matter. That goes without saying. But we live in societies where it's clear that a particular group of people are suffering the brunt of injustice for the reason of white supremacy. I mean, there's no need to hide from it, and we need to be brave enough to talk about these issues openly. And I always and there are many analogies to make about it, but we can make the analogy of when you see someone advocating for breast cancer, you don't walk up to them and say, "Oh, all cancers matter. Why are you focusing on breast cancer?" Like,
that would be horrible.
that would be stupid. Like, why would you do that? People are focused on a particular issue that's affecting people in a particular way, and if your instinct is to try to quell that, that's you really need to re-examine, why am I trying to silence them? Why? What is it about their pain and their experience that is striking this negative chord with me? And then people also talk about the fact that, cops get killed, people get killed in different places, there's wars, there's, like, as I've said before, that happens to everyone, and nobody wants to see anyone get killed, obviously. But we're talking about the added burden of people getting killed and discriminated against and having this experience just because of the color of their skin. Mm-hmm. There are universal reasons for death and strife and suffering, but none of them should be because of the color of your skin. None of them should be because people look at you differently, as a threat or less than or less intelligent or less worthy, just because of the color of your skin. We really, as a human race, need to kick this scourge out from existence. It makes no sense. We have come too far and we are too advanced for this nonsense. Like, really. And so, to all the people who when they hear Black Lives Matter, the first thing they say is all lives matter, that's you're really, really going about things the wrong way. Mm-hmm. You're looking at someone who's yelling and who's suffering, and you're telling them, "Oh, everybody's in pain." Like, what are you doing? And if you're a Christian, it's interesting because, like, I grew up in the Midwest, so I grew up around a lot of Bible carrying Christians.
Yeah.
Who have a lot of views that are not very Christian if you actually know the Bible. Yeah. And there's a parable in the Bible. Yeah, it's pretty ironic. There's a parable in the Bible about a shepherd who has 100 sheep, and one of his sheep goes missing, and he leaves 99 of his sheep to go rescue that lost sheep and bring him back to the fold. So, I mean, if you're religious, if you're a good person, when people are yelling in pain about a specific issue, you shouldn't be trying to silence them by bringing up all the other issues that are going on. There are a million issues going on in the world, yes, and they all need attention. But why is it that when someone is yelling about one issue, you bring up another issue? Like, that is very callous. That is insensitive. It is cruel. It is unjust. And I would just like people, to re-examine themselves and listen. Open up your heart. Have more empathy. And that's all I have to say about the issue.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion has been, and maybe I'm wrong, is that people that fire back with all lives matter or whatever fall into two camps. The one camp is the people that I think fundamentally misunderstand what Black Lives Matter is about. And I would tell you that it took me a little while to learn it. So I sympathize with them, and they need to be educated. It's that simple. You need to open your mind and you need to be educated about it. The other people that fire back with all lives matter, the second camp, are the ones that are prejudiced, racist, and they're the ones you're fighting against anyway. They're the ones, and there's a whole nother conversation on if whether or not you're ever going to change those people. But but I believe, now maybe I'm wrong, that they fall into more camps than just those two, but I believe they do. Now, on its face, all lives matter sounds like this kumbaya, we're all in it together, everybody join hands kind of statement. But the reason I feel all lives matter is problematic is because it redirects the attention of what Black Lives Matter is trying to say. The Black lives are the ones that are in danger now and have been in danger and will probably be in danger for the foreseeable future. While all lives matter is this really nice thing that we can say to one another and say, yes, Spanish people matter, and Dominicans and Indians and Asians, and yes, we all matter. Duh. That's the point. The point is, though, that there is a group of people that are being targeted almost. That's probably the right word. Targeted.
It is.
That are treated differently. It's that simple. So to say Black Lives Matter, plus not only that, it's ownership of the movement. That's another thing that I see as well. It's ownership of it. I don't want to use the word slogan because that really kind of, I think that kind of diminishes what it means, but it's so fucking straightforward. Hey, asshole, Black Lives Matter. Like it's so straightforward, and it's just a way to bring people together to speak out against this brutality and systemic racism that caused the death of a guy like George Floyd and the thousands of other people that came before him. So to me, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to you, Lupe, that I 100% understand the movement, because guess what? I don't. And I don't think I ever will. I think that's just life. That doesn't mean I can't empathize. That doesn't mean that I can't feel. That doesn't mean that I can't recognize right from wrong. And one of the things that has always bothered me about the retaliation of all lives matter is fuck you, you don't get it. It's that simple. You don't get it. Now you have a choice. You can either try to get it and try to understand it, or you can live in your bubble. And if you're going to live in your bubble, shut the hell up. Like that's just back off and don't say anything then, because you're just making it worse. Now I hope I'm not coming across as too angry, and I'm not insulting anybody. I'm really not. I'm trying not to. But I am saying is, please educate yourself. Anybody that's listening to this, understand that it's more than that. It's not an attack on white people. It's not an attack on Indian people. It's not an attack on Canadians, for the love of God. You know what I mean? It's an attack on the system that has caused this problem. And if you don't get that, you need to educate yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong, Lupe.
No, you're absolutely right. And the GM, the general manager of the Colts, the Indianapolis football franchise, said something. He talked about the issue, and he said something that was so powerful. He said, "Black Lives Matter." Why do some white people find it so hard to say that?
I don't understand.
A lot of people who say all lives matter, like I just ask them, if you think all lives matter, then say Black Lives Matter, and they're not able to say it.
And I understand that there are people out.
If you're not able to say Black Lives Matter, then you don't think all lives matter.
Absolutely.
And you're ignoring reality. Like, we all know that we live in a society where Black lives are in danger just because systematic racism. And all these dominoes fall, and all these things, coalesce into the unrest we're seeing now. Remember that just recently, a white lady got on the phone and she acted like she was being attacked by a black man to the police, because implicitly she understood white supremacy. Like, people can say that, oh, there's no white supremacy or nothing, but she knew. She said, "Police, I'm being attacked by an African American man." She understood what that means.
She flat out said it.
The threat to his life. Not just I'm being attacked by a man, or I'm being attacked by someone. I'm being attacked by an African American man.
Yeah, bitch. Sorry, now it's wrong. That sounds like I'm sexist because I wanted to punch her in the fucking face. But there was, oh my God, if I could reach through and just, just everything about that attitude, you bitch.
No, that is, you know, like, we should not feign ignorance for these issues. We know the type of reality that we're living in. We know, and we're tired of it. We all are. We need to all move on and tackle other problems that are going on. But until we face this with bravery, like, people need to stop being cowards about this and be brave and tackle this head on. You know, Christian, what's your experience with the All Lives Matter and the slogan of Black Lives Matter? Did you get it as soon as you heard it, or did it take a while for you to sort of understand where it's coming from, or what's been your experience with the conversation and the call to arms, Black Lives Matter?
There's no reason for me to lie. A few years ago when Black Lives Matter came out, no, I don't think I did understand it. That doesn't mean that I didn't think that the killing that sparked it was right. I thought it was wrong. I saw the problem with it, but I didn't quite understand the movement that came out of it. And I never fired back. I have to be honest. I never fired back with All Lives Matter. But I did fundamentally question. I'm like, wait a second, what are we saying here? So I'm being honest with you. I did.
Yeah.
And it took time. And it took time for me to learn, to listen, and to hear from other people to tell me, Chris, you gotta look deeper. You're seeing this in a very superficial, high level. You're not looking at it. You're looking at it the wrong way. It's that simple. You are looking at it the wrong way. And once I did that and I changed my way of thinking, it clicked. It was like an aha moment, you know? And some of that came from my wife, who will tell you right away that she, because she's Colombian, does not have to deal with as much as, like let's say a black woman would have to. However, she's had to deal with her own racism and her own, you know what I mean? It's just people will turn around and drop the spick bomb and stuff like that. They'll do it. Absolutely. They'll do it. They hear her talking Spanish and shit like that. She's gotten the looks. So, it's really what? Because I talk to my dad in Spanish. The fuck out of here. It's just, so it's, just so you know, she's like, my dad's legal, idiots. She's gotten those questions. It's ridiculous, the questions that she's gotten. So,
I not to cut you off, but I appreciate, just to join you, I appreciate you being very honest about that and showing people that, yes, you can learn if you have an open heart and you're coming from a place of empathy and positivity and love and togetherness. If you really think all lives should matter, then you can get behind this call to arms. I can even relate to this because I remember there was a time when there was sort of like this feminist movement and women were talking about their experiences. And my knee-jerk reaction was to say, like, not all men, not all men. But then my girlfriend, I was having a conversation with my girlfriend. I was like, not all men, blah, 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 blah. And she was like, what you're doing is, one, you're squashing the conversation, important conversations that are being had about about horrible experiences that women have had because of sexism. And number two, do you really want to be fighting against women, against people who are oppressed and going through something serious? Do you want to be that person who is fighting them? And that really stuck with me. Like,
that was a big part with George Floyd's death. I understood it immediately, but that's because I've had the benefit of a couple of years now of having that in my brain. But it's exactly where it was. The first time was like, well, wait a minute. I don't think that way. I don't see black people as lower than me. I don't do. And people were like, bro, you're not that's great that you think that way. God bless you. That's fantastic. But you are fundamentally fucking you're misunderstanding it. And what you're doing is you're redirecting it into something else. And I got to be honest with you. It took a little while for me to understand it, to accept it, to let it click. And you have to be able to do that. It's not easy to do that, by the way. It's really not. But this time was different.
It takes humility and sincerity. And I think that's one thing that we all need to learn. We live in a society that promotes this sort of winning mentality. And we want, because you don't want to be a loser and you have to win.
Yeah,
It comes down to, even when you're having conversations on Twitter, you have to be on the winning side, and you have to be a winner, and every conversation has to be a debate that you win and you dominate. But sometimes you have to be able to humble yourself, and really, like, admit where you were wrong and admit that you have room to grow and room to learn. There is no shame in that. There is no, it takes bravery, Paul, what do you have to add to the conversation in terms of all lives matter and the particular call to arms of Black Lives
I may have
Matter?
lost you there for a second. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
You're still here, Christian.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have covered it pretty thoroughly. I'm not sure how much I can add new. I mean, I can echo some of the same sentiments.
And Paul, I just want to say, I am so sorry. I really am. I apologize. I need to shut up. So I'm very sorry.
No, you know what? You guys are making great points, and I'm happy to listen as well, right? So, I would just say that sort of like Christian, it's a bit of a learning experience. I mean, there is that, whether that, I guess sort of the response of all lives matter to Black Lives Matter, whether that comes from a place of ignorance or malevolence, or, maybe you just have your own problems and you think, well, hold on, I got my problems too, as it's sort of a knee-jerk reaction. I think what you do come to realize is that, like you guys say, why do that all lives matter is really geared to invalidate the Black Lives Matter, and why is that such a problem? And I think there's an acute problem that Black Lives Matter is trying to address. And why would you want to distract from that? Why do you want to take away and invalidate that? And when you put it in those terms, you start to see that, of course, we agree that all lives matter, but is that really the time and place to make that statement? Because what are you really trying to accomplish by saying that? Now, I don't profess to fully understand everything that's involved with the Black Lives Matter movement, but I think at a basic fundamental level, it's something that I would hope all of us can agree matters, right? That's important, and you don't want to take away from that. So make sure that your actions are reflective of that. And beyond that, as I say, I think you guys have really covered the topic thoroughly. I've enjoyed listening to what you guys had to say, and it just gives you a little more time to think and reflect yourself as well, which is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that was a really good conversation. I hope we have inspired people to feel more free to talk about all these issues. Anything that's concerning you, that's bothering you, that you're unsure about, go ahead and ask a Black person. Like, that sounds like a funny slogan, like, ask a Black person. But a lot of people always say, oh, I have a Black friend. Talk to your Black friend about these issues. Like, I've gotten so many messages from people, from my white friends over the past couple of days, like, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do to help? What's going on? And I'm telling you, like, if your friends are Black and you actually call them friends, you should care about their well-being. And that's a good reason for you to get involved in some way, some shape, and some form. Friendship is tried when the rubber meets the road, not when the car is on the show floor and everything is it's when you're hitting those hard corners and the road is bumpy. That's when you know what's what. And so I got to give a lot of props to Paul and Christian. I'm very proud of you guys. I'm proud of the fact that on your timelines you guys retweeted stuff, you talked about it. It made me proud to be your friends, and it made me feel that you're really actually my friends and you cared about me and people like me, and your value systems were apparent to see, like, these are good people. And I'm proud to say that you guys are friends. So
likewise, Lupe.
Yeah, same here, man.
All right. So let's go on to something fun. This is a podcast about film. So we're going to weave this, Black Lives Matter, Black experience discussion into films. We're going to talk about some of our favorite films that involve the Black experience. And I will start with 12 Years a Slave. Now, 12 Years a Slave is interesting because there's a little bit of recent, it might be backlash or criticism for slave narrative films, because although they do remind us of how devastating and serious slavery was. Like, this is some really, really serious stuff that happened to, our ancestors and generations before us. There's a little bit of backlash because it makes it seem as if racism and white supremacy is a thing of the past. And now that has passed away, things are better now. But the reason why I like 12 Years a Slave a lot is because it showed a whole gamut of how slavery affected people in so many different ways, in terms of mothers being separated from their children, people being selected to mate like cattle, people not being allowed to have natural romantic relationships, people being raped. In terms of Lupita Nyong'o's character, she was raped by the slave master, the same slave master who was brutalizing her and beating her and shaming her. And it also showed a man who had escaped to the north and made a life for himself, but was still, dragged back into slavery. So it just gives it's a very panoramic perspective on the experience of these brave people. One of the scenes that stays with me the most is a woman, her children are taken from her. She has 2 children and they're sold to another slave master. And she's not even crying. She's just making sounds of pain. And she's doing this for days and days and days. And Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, has to sort of shake her up and sort of get her to accept the brutality and the inhumanity that she's facing, but keep on moving forward. And that's, I think, the heart of this story. It's the perseverance that these people had to endure. They had to continue existing. They had to find a way to live, and they had to find hope in the darkest, most abysmal, conditions ever. Like, I think of the fact that, people talk about, the Middle Passage, that's the journey between West Africa and the Americas. A lot of slaves jumped off the ship and committed suicide. As a matter of fact, like, there are statistics that show that a huge portion of slaves actually died in the Middle Passage before, coming over. And a lot of people talk about the fact that, if I was a slave, I would have, there's no way I'll be, someone's slave. Like, I would have, fought back and, but a lot of these people endured to live another day.
Yeah.
And the reason why I am alive is because because my ancestors were able to just have hope that tomorrow will be better. The next generation will be better. In the future, things will be better. And I'm alive because of that spirit of perseverance. So 12 Years a Slave is a story that shows the enduring spirit of humans in general, but Black people in particular, despite the brutal history that we have been subjected to. Christian, could you give us an example of a film that illuminates like the Black experience?
That's a good one that you mentioned, by the way. It's a good movie. It's got some fucking phenomenal cast too in it. But
Lupita Nyong'o is so good in that.
Dude, There's a few, and I don't want to take up Paul's time. So there's two that I want to mention up front, and then if we do like an honorable mention later, I'll bring them up. But the reason I want to bring up these two movies is because, to me, it's a perfect example of what we talked about earlier, where like you had one from a long time ago, and then shit has not changed at all, right? We think it's changed, and we hasn't. So the first one, I mentioned it to you guys in the messages, but I don't know if you remember. It's a classic movie, obviously made before any of us were born. It was in 1967, and it's called Guess Who's Coming for Dinner. And I would highly recommend it. Now, it's an older movie, of course, so it's, you got to think about the golden age of cinema and everything like that. But Spencer Tracy, Sidney Poitier,
Sidney Poitier,
dude. So Poitier plays a 30-some-odd-year-old guy whose wife died, and his young son also passed away. So he's a widower, and he meets a 23-year-old woman. Now, this guy, he's a black guy, obviously, but he's a doctor, and he's also a professor. So he's a smart guy. And he meets a 23-year-old woman on a Hawaiian vacation. They get together, and after like 10 days, they're basically ready to, spend their lives together. They want to get married. So she decides to, of course, bring her new fiance home to her parents. And it's Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy. Now, her two parents consider themselves to be liberal, progressive, all this stuff. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As much as they like him, as much as they like John, they don't necessarily see. They started at first by saying, we don't agree with it because you're only 23 years old and blah, 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 blah. But in reality, they're still hiding a little bit. They're like, you know what, we have no problem, but I didn't necessarily think our daughter was going to marry a black guy. So, and then the interesting wrinkle that I think was really important for 1967 to do this was John not only faced that, but he faced pushback from his own people. The Spencer and his wife, and Katharine Hepburn, I forgot her character's name, but they have a 22-year-old hired maid that is in the house. She's a black woman. She opposes the marriage too, saying, oh, you're just trying to marry this girl to get above your station. That's what she says to him in the movie. Then later on, he goes to talk to his father and say, I'm going to do this. I love this woman. He disagrees with it. He doesn't think, no matter what this poor friggin' guy does, everybody disagrees with it. And it's all for a racial reason. None of it is because it's just because they think they're a bad match or whatever it might be. No, it all comes down to some sort of racial meaning. And I always remember there was a line where John's father is telling him that he's making this huge mistake and everything. And his father, now remember, this is 1967, so they use the word colored. But he said, your father thinks, your dad, he said, you think of me as a colored man. I just think of myself as a man. That's it. And his father and him never necessarily agree. I won't ruin the ending for you because I really think the two of you guys should watch it. But it's a classic movie, and here we are, 50-some-odd years. It doesn't matter. We haven't changed, which brings me to what I spoke with you guys off the pod, a movie that I think could have been a teeny bopper movie. It could have been turned into a teeny melodrama, and it does that once in a while. But it's a movie based on the book. It's called The Hate U Give. Came out in 2013, I want to say. I might be wrong. It might be a little bit later than that. It was a Fox 2000 Pictures, and it starred the beautiful Amanda Stenberg. Regina Hill's in it, and Russell Hornsby's in it, Anthony Mackie, Common. A 16-year-old girl lives in a predominantly black neighborhood by the name of Garden Heights, but her father, who used to work for a gang and has changed his life ever since he came out of prison, made the decision that his kids are not going to live that life. So he sends them to a private white school. And one of the things that was really, when Manu and I were reviewing this together and we did our pod, one of the things that came out in our conversation was the code switching that Amanda's character had to do. She could not be herself around her white friends. Not only that, her white friends would constantly be on Snapchat, Instagram, all this other stuff, dropping like racial slurs, but trying to be funny, because they're like, but they're rich and they're white. Doesn't mean anything. They're like, and then they're like, yeah, but you're one of us. Okay, whatever. Then what happens is basically a friend from her past comes home. She meets up with him and they get pulled over by the cops. And in that incident, obviously the cop is treating the kid pretty bad. She's in the side seat, she's in the passenger seat. So he immediately is like, what are you doing with that girl? Is she is she a prostitute? Is she this? He's like, bro, relax. My friend from school. I just got home. We're hanging out, whatever. He pulls out his hairbrush and he gets shot. And she is the only witness to this whole thing. And this is one of those things where I'm not going to ruin it for you, but it chronicles her experience from the pushback she gets from her own community, forcing her, saying, you need to be a voice, to the white people that don't understand what she's going through. And she starts losing her friends because of it. She does have a white boyfriend in the movie, and he is fantastic, by the way, and he supports her the whole way. But he admits that he doesn't understand what's going on necessarily, but at least he's there for her. And by the way, there's a really cool scene in the movie where the father, it's reverse. She brings home the white kid, and the father's like, "You fucking kidding me?" So which is pretty cool. But the movie could have gone in this weird teeny bopper melodrama, and it didn't. It was grounded the entire time, and it's grounded, by the way, because of those fantastic performances. And when her character at the end finds her voice during the inevitable riot and march, and she gets on the bullhorn and she starts screaming about her friend, her kid, and her friend, I'm sorry, not her kid, her friend. And she starts screaming about what she saw, and there needs to be a change. It is a truly tear-jerking moment where you're really like, fuck yeah. You're so excited for her. It was a very good movie. So to me, I wanted to highlight those two because I think that you got one from the 1960s and what happened then, and you got another one from 2000, I guess it's maybe 2015. And not much has changed, right? Not much has changed. But I like the fact that it did chronicle two different types of lives in two different time periods.
That's dope. I'm definitely, Sidney Poitier is one of my favorite actors of all time. He was something else. So I'm definitely gonna watch
Great actor.
Yeah.
Great actor.
The Hate You Give. You guys have a review on it, so we're gonna put the link in the description box.
Thank you.
For y'all. So we definitely should promote that. People listen to that review, and hopefully it inspires you to watch that movie. Paul, do you have any favorite films of the Black experience? They could be modern, they could be, anything you want.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough one. But I guess I'm trying to decide which ones fit this criteria for me. I guess I go back to movies that hit me at a time where it either educated or influenced me. And the two that jumped to mind for me were from my early to mid teenage years, and that was Boys in the Hood and Do the Right Thing.
Boys in the Hood, bro.
Yeah. Really good choices. Do the Right Thing is so timely. So timely.
Yeah, it's still it's obviously I think that one's more focused around racial tensions. I mean, both are sort of a slice of life, in their respective communities. Compton or Brooklyn, I guess, is Do the Right Thing, I believe. But yeah, I mean, they just hit me at a time where the music was starting to spread. You're becoming more aware of the music, and I mean, it sort of opens an interest, I guess, into the life behind some of the music, which is what I guess attracted me to Boys in the Hood. Do the Right Thing was something that even that one I still remember the ties to Public Enemy. It was Radio Raheem with it was always was playing Public Enemy. So back at that time, I mean, NWA, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, Public Enemy, those sort of groups were I guess at their peak, right? And that has sort of permeated even small town Canadian white culture, right? So that was sort of a first experience with that sort of thing, because for me, I lived in a small Canadian town that was 75,000 people. I'd be shocked if there was more than 10 Black people in the whole city, right? So you don't have that kind of exposure to that life. So these movies were eye-opening for me, along with the music, and hit me at a time where your mind is still a little more malleable, a little more spongy. These days not much sticks anymore, but but back then your mind is still fresh and receptive and interested in new things, right? And so these ones stick, even more so than some of the more modern films that I considered. These are the ones that when I think about what film stuck in my mind and influenced me, and educated me and made me aware, I would say these are the two that still stick in my head to this day.
Nice.
Yeah. I think that's incredible. Like the power of film and storytelling is very important. They really can illuminate other people's experiences in a dramatic way. They're informative, they're educational, they humanize people. So you see, you know, oh, these people, you know, they may have a different experience. They may be living in different conditions, but they're like me. Or, you know, if I was in that situation, I might turn out like that, you know, and that's why we love film so much.
Well, with Boys in the Hood too. I sorry, sort of cut you off, Lupe. I was just going to say,
Go
like,
ahead.
you know, they're very different characters, right?
Mhm,
Like Ricky and Trey. I mean, obviously, like Ricky gets
yeah.
he's got potential, the most potential possibly, if you know, if he
Mhm,
can hit his scores and get into, you know, get a scholarship, and he gets gunned down. And then, you know,
mhm,
Trey's the hardworking one who almost throws it away to try and even the score, kind of thing. So,
mhm.
and, you know, in each of those, the other, I can't, the names of the other characters now, it's been so long I can't remember, but you know, each has their own situation and their own circumstance. So like you say, you can kind of, even though that's not your personal situation, you can see elements of those characters that you can relate to, and sort of envision yourself in those situations, and how, and that opens your mind a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, absolutely. Yes, it does. Um, so other films that I would recommend to people, not to get too deep into it. The recent Watchmen, that was on HBO, is actually a good one. It's so interesting because I'm of two minds about it. I'm of the mind that it didn't need to be made a Watchmen story because it's so different. But at the same time, it's so brilliant how Damon Lindelof takes the Watchmen lore and is able to use it to tell a racial story about the experience of Black people in a very tangible way. And one thing that he illuminated that a lot of people didn't know, and it's not the only one, is the Oklahoma race riots, or Black Wall Streets. It was basically Black people had built a wealthy community for themselves in Oklahoma, and white people bombed the entire community and destroyed the entire community. And he opens the series with that bit of American history, which a lot of people, you know, don't know about. And that's not the only case of something like that that's happened. It's also happened in Philadelphia. And you people always wonder, if slavery was the last time that Black people went through these traumatic events that alter destinies. And Watchmen shows that the trauma has been reverberating and ongoing through the ages. And it's actually quite good. It's quite good. Then also Tenet is one that I think is also important. We haven't yet seen it, but
Right.
it's important that a movie that's that big from a director like Christopher Nolan can have a Black lead. Like, it's the biggest movie ever in terms of being plus $200 million that has a Black lead. It's very important because now we're talking of the playing field being leveled and normalizing people in these positions that were exclusively the birthright of another group of people, of more the white protagonists. So I think that Tenet is also, it's not the obvious choice for it's a Black movie, important in sort of like Black cinema, but
Mhm.
I think it's one of those subconscious things that's going to go a long way, and I think it's awesome. Christian, do you have any more you want to add before we move on to Detroit?
Yes, I will add one final one. And by the way, your previous point, even a movie, I understand it's the MCU, but even a movie like Black Panther is important. And the fact that
Yes,
like that
absolutely.
T'Challa is going to be an important character moving forward, I think is a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Um, but anyway,
yeah,
the other
without
movie
a
I would,
doubt.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
No, no, no. Before you move on from Black Panther, I think one thing that's important in Black Panther that a lot of people really love is that we're related with a lot of Eurocentric mythology in terms of learning fables and Greek gods and stuff about
Hmm.
fairies and witches and wizards, but we haven't had in popular culture a lot of African mythology, and I
Yeah.
thought that was so refreshing to see a new story being added to our tapestry of
Mhm.
of things that we can reference and things that we can relate to. And honestly, like I hope that we see a lot more of that. A lot of people wouldn't know, but African religious mythology is very rich with incredibly potent characters that are as rich as like the Greek gods or the
Mhm.
Norse gods or Arthurian legends, and there's even like an African god who's like exactly like Thor. He actually is the god of thunder, and he actually looks and actually it's freaking weird. Um, so I think that Black Panther is really really good and really important for that.
Mhm. And before I make my final point, just so you know, you got a little staticky there at the
Yeah,
end, so I don't
yeah,
know if you have to make
yeah.
a quick
Sorry
change.
about
But as a musician, straight out of Compton, bro. I mean, that movie is great. I don't know if either
that.
one of you guys saw it, but the build up to NWA
No,
and
I've seen it.
why,
Yeah,
bro, so good. The performances are outstanding. The
yeah,
music still holds up to this day. The story as to why these guys
absolutely.
got together and what this music meant to them, and how it changed their lives, and they were never the same moving forward. That movie is so great, and that shit thumps from beginning to end. It's so good.
Yes,
You
it
know,
does.
little, I don't even know what else. Good thing, Paul. If you haven't seen it, you got to see Straight Outta Compton, bro. It's
You
so
know what?
good.
It's been one of those ones that's been on my list for about 2-3 years now, and it's just not gotten around it. But yeah, no, it's one I've considered watching a number of times. One of these days, I'm gonna have to make myself sit down and watch it.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
So,
unfortunately, it's relevant to these days. Like we talk about George Floyd, and police brutality didn't just start when cell phones were invented.
right.
It's been going on since the beginning of America, since there were, police patrols to keep slaves in check.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Hmm.
it's sad that it's still timely. And that's why that those words, fuck the police,
Yeah.
people say over and over and over again. And I just hope that, with this movement we can get to the place where the police serve all of them. They have reform within their ranks, and they're able to really live up to the promise of protecting and serving everyone in the community.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about a particular movie, Detroit. All right, that's the title. Very succinct, very direct. It was directed by Kathryn Bigelow, and it was released in 2017. And it stars John Boyega. It stars Anthony Mackie. It stars Chris Chalk. It's got a really 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 good cast. It's got Laz Alonso in it, Daniel Washington in it, and it's based in 1967 on the Detroit riots, in which a group of rogue police officers respond to a complaint, and they go to a house party, and they act with retribution rather than justice. And it goes back to the discussions of police brutality, of police overreach, misuse of the badge and the status that police have been given against Black people and people of color. Also, it's based around riots. So, we're experiencing riots or experiencing peaceful protests, but also some violent protests as well, which, of course, we do not condone, but which are a result of certain issues that we've been facing. So let's get into a review of it. First, let's just go with general thoughts of the film. If you liked the film, if you didn't, I will start with saying I absolutely love this film. Like, it's directed by Kathryn Bigelow. She's one of my favorite directors ever. Like, if you ask me for like my top 5, 7-ish directors, she's in there. Just the way she shoots this film, you can tell that she's an auteur director. And what we mean when we say auteur director is someone who has a particular style. When you see the style, you say, okay, that's Kathryn Bigelow's style. If somebody else shoots a film like that, you say, this person is copying Kathryn Bigelow's style. And her style is she does this thing with the camera, it's handheld, and it's almost like it's shoulder mounted, like a war correspondent type of thing. And it puts you on edge. It shows how there's a bit of chaos. Things are not as locked down and steady. The ground and the narrative is constantly shifting. And like the way she does it, it's like shaky cam, but it's controlled. And there's an art to it and a style to it. And then if you interweave that with like the other elements, which we'll get to, it's absolutely brilliant. So Christian, what did you think about it overall?
I did enjoy it. When you said you wanted to watch it, I told my wife I was going to, and she was like, "Oh, I'll watch it with you." And just as a side note, she actually cried a little bit during the movie. It really bothered her at certain scenes. But yeah, it depicts a darker time. The 12th Street riot is a darker time in American history, and then of course the Algiers motel incident is dark as well. It's another dark stain in our history, and I'm glad what you just said. The movie is uncomfortable from beginning to end, and it starts uncomfortable. Like the music underneath is uncomfortable. Everything is just, nothing feels right, and it's
like a horror movie.
Yeah, like nothing feels good, and nothing should feel good, and it's just so from beginning to end, the whole thing. It's almost like you want to take a shower when it's over. It's just like, my God, I just gotta. But it's powerful, and the performances I thought were quite good, and I'm glad you mentioned the shaky cam thing, because I noticed that they tried to do this like a little bit of a blend with what looked like news clippings of the time, and then she'd follow up with the scene, and that blended very beautifully. So she shot it almost like it was a reporter shooting it and reporting on everything and just following these events along and trying to just watch what was happening. Not that she was going to make a change. What she did wasn't going to stop it. She was just going to show you what happened. That's it. And like a horror movie, like you said, you can't friggin' stop it. It just keeps coming. So yeah, I did like it. Powerful. You know, it's not the type of movie I want to watch over and over again. You know, it's because it doesn't make you feel good. But yes, it's definitely a powerful movie. And I'm sorry I missed it earlier. I'm glad you suggested to watch it.
All right, Paul. What do you think?
Yeah, same. It's a well-made movie. I don't know if enjoy is the right word because it is an uncomfortable movie, but it's a good movie. It's worth watching. It's definitely uncomfortable. And it's a little slice of I guess kind of a slice of life, highlighting an incident where something small can inflame pre-existing racial tensions and prejudices and just ignite into an absolute mess. And it's not a comfortable thing to watch by any means, but definitely a good movie and a well-made movie, worthwhile watching. I didn't pick up on the on her distinctive style, but now that you mention it, I can see what you're talking about. I mean, I've only seen this in Hurt Locker by her, so I didn't immediately clue in, but I think you guys raised an interesting observation there as well. But definitely worth watching. And again, this was another movie that I remember when it was coming out. I sort of had it on my list of films that I wanted to watch and never got around to it. And I'm glad that I did. This was the right, I guess, impetus to watch it, and it is worth watching for sure.
What do you guys think of? Because the reason why I watched it was obviously Kathryn Bigelow, but John Boyega as well. Because we all know John Boyega as, Finn. Yeah, Finn. Even seeing him in Attack the Block, it's not a comedy, but it's not like a serious, dramatic, thespian kind of role. Like this is a prestige drama. So what do you guys think? Do you think that? Like for me, I'll start. Like I was shocked and awed by his performance. I thought he was brilliant in it. Such a hard left from the other character that he's well known for, and he played the role magnificently well. It's not a very vocal role, but there is a lot of, he has to do a lot of face acting. He has to express his emotions using his body and his face and posture, and he does it brilliantly. Like John Boyega, like people don't sleep on John Boyega. He's not this sort of I don't know, flimsy sort of happy-go-lucky kind of act. Like he is well-rounded, and he can star in the most serious of prestige dramas that really require high level acting. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's the problem with franchise movies, too, is whether it's Jurassic Park or Fast and the Furious or Marvel or Star Wars, these big actors go in and sometimes you forget that they can do other shit. They make the big money and they do those roles, but they're a lot of these guys and women are goddamn good at what they do. His accent was like perfect Midwestern accent. He nailed it. I agree with you with the facial expressions. He had to snap from revulsion to calm in a matter of seconds. So he could have been disgusted by something, but then he kind of had to blend in the next minute, and he did it very well when he bought, I forgot the character's name, upstairs, and they were searching in vain for the gun that was not there. But he's almost frantic at the same time. He's trying to keep his cool. It was a good performance by him, and not one that I would have expected. Definitely want to see more of this guy. He's young as hell. So, we definitely haven't seen, obviously, the last of him. I mean, we could see a lot more of him moving forward. I hope we do. And it's roles like this, he can stay away from franchises, and I'll be very happy.
Yeah. Christian, what do you think?
Sorry, Louis.
Sorry, Paul. Paul,
unless you want to hear Christian go over it again, that's fine too.
Nobody wants to hear that, Paul.
No, I was impressed. To be honest, I forgot he was in this. And he wasn't I wouldn't call him the lead character. I mean, you see he gets if you go to Wikipedia, they've given him top billing, but I wouldn't have considered him the lead by any means. And Lupe, I think you made a good point that he does a lot of face acting in this. He's an observer in a lot of this, and stuck in sort of an uncomfortable position, and you can sort of feel the I guess the difficulty of his position through his facial expressions as he's watching. And Christian, like you said, when he does speak, his accent is excellent. So I think he did a great job in the role. I think some of the other actors were great as well. Some of the lesser known actors that you may not recognize, but definitely I think he shows that he has some range here. And I think I look forward to seeing what what else he's in future, but I think he did a great job in this one.
Wonderful. Okay. So let's talk about some technical aspects just slightly. I think one thing that really stuck with me was the music. I'm glad that Christian mentioned something about it. The score, how it was used, was brilliant, and also the original soundtrack. Did you guys get a chance to listen to the song that the Roots wrote for the film? It's a song that plays at the end credits. It's called "It Ain't Fair."
I only listened to it during the end credits. I didn't listen to it outside of that. I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah, no, I stopped it shortly after the credits started, so I didn't hear it either.
All right, you guys. After this, you got to give it a listen.
Sure.
It's absolutely brilliant. Do you guys know who the Roots are?
Yes. Yeah, I know the rhythm. I'm a musician. I know the rhythm.
Yeah. Paul, trust me. Do you know who they are?
You know what? I've heard of them. I'm not super familiar with them. I'm not a huge music guy in general, though.
When you hear them, you'll be like very impressed. They're a hip hop band. Okay, so
they're very good.
Incredible. They do a lot of live instrumentation, and they sort of like do a blend of like hip hop and jazz and soul, and they have a lead rapper, they have a drummer, they usually have like bassists. They have like the whole gamut, and it's live jazzy instrumentation mixed in with hip hop. But
did you ever watch Jimmy Fallon, dude? They're the band on Jimmy Fallon.
Yes, they are. They're the house band.
Yeah, I mean, I hate that because like Jimmy Fallon. Screw him.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
That's at least 2 hours after my bedtime, Christian. I haven't seen late night television in decades.
Well, they are so much better. Jimmy Fallon does not deserve the Roots at all.
It's interesting, but hey, it's a residency, and I guess it's a steady paycheck for them. So,
yeah, man, your musicians got to make money sometimes. That's how it is.
But that in terms of like technical aspects, I'll say the cinematography and that original song. Honestly, I felt like that song should have won original song of the year. I really do feel so. I also feel that Detroit should have been given more awards recognition that year. But one thing that you come to learn about the award circuit and about Oscars is that which is debatable whether it's right or wrong, is that some of the films that get attention, especially the political ones, it has to do with what's buzzing in the zeitgeist at that moment.
Yeah.
And the film came after some attention was paid to police brutality, but it came a bit too late. It came when the Me Too movement was picking up steam. So that was the center of attention of the political films and films with socially conscious messages, which is okay. I have no problem with that. I did feel that based on quality, it deserved recognition, whether it wins or not up to me. I felt that the craftsmanship was worthy. And also, I just felt in terms of politics, I felt like, whether it's popular, fashionable, zeitgeisty, police brutality, as we can see, something that just doesn't stop until it does, hopefully in the future. So those are my concluding sort of thoughts on it. Christian, what aspects of the film spoke to you? What objective aspects of the film?
Music is definitely always a big thing for me. And James Newton Howard, I've been a fan of his ever since The Fugitive back in 1993, which had fantastic music. He partnered up with Hans Zimmer for the Dark Knight trilogy. He did all the music for the Hunger Games, the Bourne Legacy. He's doing the new Fantastic Beasts. So that guy's been around a long time, James Newton Howard, and I've always loved his music. And the music for me in this movie set the stage and set the tone for something that you should not, going back to what Paul said a minute ago, not be comfortable with. And it was uncomfortable from the beginning. He used these weird bassy kind of tones that were going in the background of the movie with this, kind of this hum that just was like, I don't feel right. I don't feel right. It's just. Go ahead.
That was going to jump in, Christian. That music as well. I don't often pay attention to a lot of those details the same way you guys do, but that music definitely jumped out to me in the beginning of the movie. I noticed that right away, and I like that. It was like you say, it set the tone, and it was, I think it added something for sure.
It felt it did. And I'll end on this and then throw it back to Paul so you can say, but I really appreciated the fact that the movie felt small. I saw a review on this when I was doing a little bit after I woke up before I started work today. I read a couple of reviews, and this one woman, who I won't even give credit to, gave it a bad review because she felt it was torture porn. I didn't feel that way at all. I liked the fact that it was smaller. You should not feel good about what happened. I understand if you read the historical archives, there's a couple of questions on what actually went down that night, but it doesn't matter because 3 people died. Shit absolutely went down that should not have gone down. I don't want to hear anything else. It just shouldn't have happened. And it would have been easy, I think, for this movie to really go bigger if she wanted to. And really, she could have talked about, if they wanted to, they could have talked about the 12th Street riot as a whole. They could have talked about race relations as a whole. No, they tried to stick, the majority of this movie is on this one incident. And it's played very uncomfortably, looking over their shoulder. You are an observer watching this happen, and you can't stop it. And then you get the ending with the courtroom drama and everything. You have all that. But the point is that chunk of the movie is done so well. That's what I think about now when I think about this movie. I think about that part. And I think it was a good move for them to keep it small and to keep it focused on that. So that's what I remember.
Nice. Christian, what about you? Do you just agree with Paul? I keep on saying Christian.
You're having a senior moment. It's all right.
I was going to say that's like the third time tonight.
Sorry. So Paul, what are your concluding thoughts? Is there anything objective about the film that you felt resonated with you?
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily have anything more to add on that. I mean, like Christian said, it's supposed to be uncomfortable. You're not supposed to feel good watching this, right? I think that's kind of the point, and that does the tone, and the sort of the duration of this scenario that they were going through does stick with you, right? It sort of etches in your mind a little bit. So, I don't really have anything more meaningful to add, but it does a good job of sort of pulling you into that situation and conveying the emotion of it and sort of the hopelessness of the situation as you see it spiraling out of control and getting worse and worse, and then ultimately leading to a less than satisfying outcome in terms of justice.
Yeah. I think just in conclusion, I think it's important for us to champion Kathryn Bigelow because we always talk about female directors and inclusion of female voices and female craftswomen and storytellers. And a lot of times I don't hear a lot of people talk about her enough. And that bothers me because I don't know, it can't be just me. She's not just like, oh, she's a great female filmmaker. She's one of the best filmmakers in Hollywood. Go ahead.
Lupe, I was going to say, when I said before I'd only seen Hurt Locker by her, I totally forgot she did Zero Dark 30. I mean, they're both excellent movies, along with this one, right? So she's on the three that I've seen. That's three phenomenal movies she's made.
Yeah, yeah. So, just I think we should highlight her. We should all talk about her more, and we should all support whatever else she does, because I mean, it's not just a situation where we're supporting someone just because they're female. No, she is freaking amazing. Okay, yeah, good. Yeah. So that was our review for Detroit. If you're listening to this and you would like to watch a good movie, period, that you might have missed, watch Detroit. If you would like to watch something that speaks to the times that we're in, speaks to the Black experience, speaks to police brutality, to civil unrest, protests, watch Detroit as well. You would learn some really good things from it. And also listen to the song by The Roots. It's called It Ain't Fair, featuring Bilal. It's a really, really great record. All right.
I will. Lupe, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, guys. I was just going to say, I had no idea. I just was looking up Kathryn Bigelow to see what else she'd done. I had no idea she did Point Break.
Dude, yeah, that's right. Dude, she's insane.
She did Point Break. She did Strange Days.
Yeah.
Yep.
Been
around, man.
I took she's not that's why I said she's not just a good female director. She's one of the best directors, period.
Yeah. Wow. To be honest, I thought that her fame had come more recently. I had no idea that she'd been
around.
Even Blue Steel back in 1990. Yeah. I remember watching.
Just I don't know why people don't talk. I don't get it. I honestly don't.
It is shocking that she's not talked about more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. I mean, stunning. I had no idea this was her. I mean, I wasn't paying attention to who was directing movies back then. That's something that I've sort of become more aware of recently. But yeah, I'm stunned to see that that Point Break, Strange Days, and Blue Steel were hers.
Incredible.
And Algie Smith, by the way, who plays the singer in this, has a freaking phenomenal voice. He is also the young man who's killing as the catalyst for everything in The Hate You Give.
Really?
Yep. Okay. So that's another. So just going back to another thing, I didn't realize that until I watched. Obviously, I saw the movie. I was like, wait, he's in this too. So but that kid can sing.
Yeah, I think they did a good job, weaving the whole Motown. Sort of. So it's like just the name Detroit, the Motown soul music movement, and the events all coming together. It's really a good movie. It's really a good movie. Very well written, very well directed. Okay, so let's move on to our next topic, and we're going to talk about the reception to HBO Max. HBO Max has launched. No more teasing, no more speculation. It's here. Everybody can judge it. Everybody can download it or not, apparently, as we're going to discuss. And so just in general, the reception has not been hot. It hasn't been a sizzling or toasty. Disney Plus, when it launched, it was an amazing rollout. People were really excited about it. But HBO Max, it's been very different. So you guys, I'd like you guys to carry this conversation with the information that we have at our disposal. Let's start with Christian. Christian, what has the reception from the media been like? And you, as a user of the platform, what's your reaction to the media's reaction?
The media's reaction seems to be, from what I've been looking at on social media and a couple of actual publications online, has been mixture of ho-hum to this stinks.
Yeah.
that's the reaction I've noticed. It's a mixture of, oh, this is a big deal, no it's not, to this thing is a piece of crap. Whether we want to forget anybody who we think might be a shill for another company, I think they're a little short-sighted right now. Now, Paul, when we talk to him, he's got the numbers in front of him. So he's definitely got a little bit more ammunition for this than I do. So I'll leave that to him. I know that they made a mistake by not having a Roku and an Amazon deal up front. That's a serious issue. That's a big mistake in the United States, at least, because that's millions of people. I forgot the number, but it's millions of people.
20 million or so, 20, 30.
It might have been. It might have been. It's high. It's a high amount of people. And when you look at the straight up number of downloads, yes, I understand a company like Disney Plus dwarfed them. And that makes sense because Disney's got, the whole family thing behind them and stuff like that. And that's okay. HBO is in a weirder position because they already have HBO subscribers. They have AT&T TV subscribers, things like that. I gave you guys my review on it last week, especially the app itself. I'm not overly thrilled with the original content. I am thrilled with their legacy content. I also had to download it in order to move forward. The way I get HBO, and I was grandfathered in, I couldn't watch it on what I currently had. I still had to download the new app. So I'm one of the people that downloaded it. They did say, I guess the download numbers are low. But in me, my personal thing is there's two things. Number one, I think a lot of these reporters are fundamentally misunderstanding what HBO is trying to do here. I think you mentioned that Netflix has 200 million subscribers worldwide. This thing hasn't even launched worldwide yet. This is one piece of the puzzle. They're going after the big fish. Disney and Hulu will do their thing. I don't think they're after Disney, Hulu. They are after Netflix. They want to be, when people think, I want a streaming service, I want this. Now, my second point is the way they're put together at this moment, I don't think they're there yet. So while I still think that the reporters did get it wrong, because I think they're fundamentally missing the point here. However, HBO Max does have a little bit of a problem. Their problem right now could be because of COVID, but their originals suck. Their originals suck. They're bad. They're not good. So
we've said this since day one.
Yeah.
We've all agreed. Like, this has been a unanimous consensus opinion on it. You got to come with the originals and don't just come half-cocked. Come with guns blazing, the full extended clip, all of it.
Everything. So, yeah, I'll throw back to Paul because I've talked a lot tonight and I feel like I've taken it from him. But it's weird. While I do believe they don't get it, they did raise a point because the three of us agreed the original content is lacking on this platform right now. It really is.
Yeah. So, I don't disagree with that, Christian. I mean, I don't have access to HBO Max. I have access to some of HBO Max's content through Crave in Canada. So Crave is going to be our source for HBO Max content for the foreseeable future. But like we talked about briefly last week, we don't have access to the HBO Max app, interface, library, none of that. We just get access to the new content and whatever movies happen to be licensed to show through HBO within Canada, but that's not representative in any way of the full HBO Max library. And there's different agreements, apparently, in the same way that Netflix Canada would have different content available than Netflix in the US and Netflix in other places, right? So for me, I can only judge it based on the new content. And like I mentioned last week, my daughter's actually been devouring that Craftopia show, but I mean, there's nothing for me new that interests me. And, in HBO, going back to, back to the fall, when they announced it, they said they were very clear that they were going to be targeting audiences which they felt were underserved. And we'll see how that strategy pays off. But I think the three of us are probably not so much in the underserved portion of the audience, so that content is not necessarily resonating with us, I guess, right? So they identified gaps in their lineup they wanted to fill. They're working towards that, and like you guys have alluded to, I think they're looking at this more in terms of the long game. And I think that's maybe a reason not to get so concerned by some of these initial numbers. Now they've made some, I guess I don't know if I don't necessarily want to say they made questionable choices, but obviously not having Roku or the Fire TV stick, and not having their app available on those platforms. I mean that's a big deal. Any app I watch is either on my phone, or on a Roku, or on a Fire TV stick. I mean, I guess some of the apps you can access through a PS3 or Sony Blu-ray player or a smart TV, but I mean, those are the ones those would be the go-tos, right? If you want to have a good library of apps that's not limited, for me at least, it would be Roku, Fire TV, or my Apple phone, right? Those would be the three places I'd go. So not having those available is a big deal. Now the numbers that I'm quoting here, these are from a Yahoo Finance article from earlier in the week, and it's quoting first-day downloads, and they're saying that this is according to data from something called Sensor Tower. 87,000 users across Apple's App Store and Google Play downloaded the HBO Max app on Wednesday the 27th, which was well below the initial downloads for Quibi, which had 380,000, and Disney Plus, which had 4 million. So way below. But again, part of that's because it's not available on these different platforms. Part of that's because they don't have a ton of exciting new content. But I think the big thing is they're saying that it does not include figures of people who acquire the service through their cable provider, and it does not include those who upgrade from the old HBO Now app. And they're saying that the HBO Now app in its lifetime has installs of over 33 million since April 2015. So that's a good number of people right there, right? Now it goes on to say that that's still a far cry from Netflix's 260 million installs, and Hulu's 120 million, and Disney Plus at 50 million. But at least it it gives a little bit of an explanation why that number of 87,000 on day one is so low. And they do have a tremendous library, and as their new content comes in, I think they'll become a more legitimate competitor for a Netflix and a Disney Plus and a Hulu. So time will tell. But I think a lot of the numbers you're hearing are taking a piece of data in isolation without some of these qualifiers that are actually relevant.
Yeah.
I think personally, just from looking at on the outside in, it boils down to there are a few things. Okay, so we can say maybe using the name HBO was not a good idea in terms of if you want to market something that's to a general audience, because people already associate that brand name with a particular type of product. And you already have HBO subscribers, HBO Now subscribers, and maybe that's your customer base. The only thing you can hope for is that you reach those type of people who are in international markets. I'm not sure what their plan is for that, how, far into the future that's all going to be realized. But if you wanted to capture a more four-quadrant market like your original programming has hinted at, maybe you needed to use a name that was more general. So something like Warner streaming app. I don't know. I can't.
I wonder about that too.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, I think you could argue though that they're taking advantage of their brand equity. Like HBO has a good reputation, and they have a built-in subscriber base who they are converting free of charge. Like you're almost buying yourself a built-in subscriber base, and you're taking advantage of a respected brand. So I can see why they wouldn't throw that away and try to start with something completely new and different. I think it just skews the stats a little bit because
I do agree with that, but obviously for the launch, it might not be they might not see the gains on that because, as I said, it might only appeal to people who like HBO. And, because Disney's brand, people think, family, kids, that sort of stuff, everything for everyone. But HBO, you're thinking more adult stuff. But they want to appeal to the all ages, not skewing family like Disney, but like Netflix, there's something for everyone. But I think in the future, like over time, as they add more originals and they gain more market penetration and more people, hear about. So in the long term, you're 100% right. I think it's probably a good move. I think the main thing that we all agree on is that they didn't have originals. And it's not just about the Friends special that they were planning. I don't think that was particularly enough. Although Friends is a gargantuan brand and a gargantuan draw, but you need something like you need a series that's going to bring people every week to have that conversation and keep on drawing people, because you need to make your launch an event. And I felt like their launch wasn't an event. It just launched.
Well, Lupe, not to sidetrack too much. There's two points I want to make here. One, I mean, they did get a boost from specifically that type of title, even though it's not coming out until 2021. But I did see a quote where they said it's already a success based on the media attention it garnered. And I mean,
really?
I saw one of the executives, I forget who it was, had said that Zack Snyder's Justice League is already a success based on the media attention it drew alone, right? So I think they're happy with, just the attention that it brought them, even though we're going to have to wait potentially a year to see it. I mean, it created a ton of buzz because
Absolutely.
you and I went through that lineup in detail, and we talked about putting an episode out, reviewing it, and so much of it missed the mark for us that I think we both agreed that it was going to be a boring episode.
It's hilarious. We spent like a whole hour talking.
2 hours. We talked 2 hours about this thing and then scrapped the episode.
Like, we can't.
That sucks.
But what was the one takeaway that we had from it? It's like half of it was aimed at kids, right? And so to your point about 4-quadrant appeal, they recognized that gap in their lineup and the perception of their brand, and they were going hard to address it. But the thing is, a lot of that stuff hasn't come out yet. I mean, they have made a point of pushing the Looney Tunes. Now, Looney Tunes is not a personal favorite of mine. To me, that was always kind of it was the cartoons I settled on when I couldn't find something better. But I know there are people that have warmer recollections of Looney Tunes. But they've got Cartoon Network, they've got Adult Swim, and they're putting out a ton of new kids stuff. And almost every one of those shows, Lupe, I did say that my daughter either would be interested in or would have been interested when she was at the appropriate age for them, or might be interested in them in the near future. So I thought that they do have a lot of potentially quality kids content coming. They've got their association with Sesame Street and taking advantage of that brand. So I think they are addressing that, but I don't know if the perception is caught up to the perception of the brand is necessarily caught up to the fact that content is either there or on its way. And that will take time, like you said.
I agree. I completely agree. Christian, do you have anything else to add to the conversation?
Not really. I think you guys covered it all, and it just remains to be seen exactly where it goes. It is an interesting point that you guys make about HBO and that brand, though, and they are going for something that's more everyone as opposed to HBO. Maybe it should have been called, WB's service, whatever, because there's a ton of shit on there, and there's old stuff, classics. It's not just HBO, but there is something to be said. When you hear the HBO name, you think, lately especially, prestige programming. So, keep that in mind. I mean, that was probably, they wanted to keep that HBO brand to say, hey, we're going to do what we want. And when you watch the stuff that comes out, eventually that's original, it's going to be good shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so we'll keep HBO Max on our minds. It's going to be very interesting to watch. Said here we love the artistic side of film as well as the sort of technical economic side of the industry. This is how our content is being distributed to us. So it's something that we're going to stay abreast of and study and talk about. So HBO Max is playing the long game, and so are we. So our final topic for the day is about the AyerCut. It's a really good segue because HBO Max is dropping the Snyder Cut, and when the AyerCut drops, it's going to be on HBO Max. So David Ayer has been given, tidbits about what was included, what wasn't included, and just keeping people interested and keeping people informed and keeping, those fires burning. This is how you keep the movement alive and how you have people gain interest by engaging. And he revealed something that was quite important for a couple of reasons. So someone called DC Connections tweeted a response to a GIF that had Harley Quinn, and it was her introduction, and it read something to the effect of she was an accomplice with the Joker in the murder of Robin. And DC Connections on Twitter said, I think that text was added in later by editors who didn't get the full story. The backstory behind his teeth, Joker, makes Harley being an accomplice impossible. David Ayer quote tweeted and said, yes, that broke my timelines. Johns added it. By Johns, he means Geoff Johns. So Geoff Johns is a very controversial figure, a villain of some sorts when it comes to the history of the DCEU, the history of discontent by the fans, the history of how it was Zack Snyder's plans and this sort of cohesive grand plan was derailed. And so there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of insinuation. Some people know more than they're allowed to say. Some people say less than they want to. So we haven't been very sure where he's coming. Now, I was 100% sure that he came in and he meddled with Wonder Woman. And as a matter of fact, if you go on his Twitter page, the Wonder Woman is still his banner. It's like he keeps on holding on to that. It's like, just let it go, dude. It was so many years ago. But he meddled with Wonder Woman. Obviously, we know what he did on Justice League. It's why he got fired. But there was rumor that he was involved with Suicide Squad, but we were not sure. It was just rumors by bloggers. But from David Ayer's tweet, yes, that broke my timeline. Johns added it. It's 100% certain that he did. So I want to ask you guys what you think of of this issue in terms of someone coming in and how their influence and their meddling basically broke the entire DCEU. Let's start with Paul.
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I didn't really understand. I guess let's start off with, I didn't catch in Suicide Squad where they had put in text on the screen in the montage that she was an accomplice to murder of Robin. It didn't even really register with me that. I remember clearly from BVS that the Joker had obviously killed Robin. That's made clear, but that little blip of information on the screen in Suicide Squad either I missed it or didn't seem especially important to me. So when I saw this tweet, I thought, well, what text that Harley Quinn was involved in the death of Robin? Like this, how did this break the timeline? And we had to talk about it amongst the three of us, and Christian kind of pieced it together. First, I think that the implication. I guess where this broke down is that it's understood, and David Ayer has said this himself or confirmed this, that the reason Joker has the grill is because Batman knocked his teeth out for killing Robin, right? So where the timeline is broken is that Harley Quinn can't be an accomplice to that, because when she met Joker, he already had the grill as a result of Batman knocking his teeth out for killing Robin, right? So when you look at the flashback scenes in Suicide Squad, he's already missing his teeth. They've already been replaced. So So that, I guess, is how it breaks the timeline. So technically, yes, I guess John's meddling broke the timeline. In the scale of the damage that he's done, this seems minor. So it's not shocking in itself in terms of the actual breakage. I don't think this is by any means the greatest of his crimes on the DCEU or the Snyderverse. I think what's interesting is that David Ayer felt emboldened to come out and name him for doing it, which is kind of unusual. And on the one hand, it makes you wonder why this point, and also what's made him feel that now is the time to start naming names. And even though it wasn't like an overt shot at Johns, it was more a statement of fact that, oh yeah, Geoff Johns came in and changed that. I don't think that's something we would have seen a year ago, right? So I think it's more significant in the fact that Ayer called it out than the actual change itself, because that could be, it could be overlooked. It could easily be overlooked. And to be honest, I don't even think they specifically said in the movies that Batman knocked Joker's teeth out because of Robin. I think that's something that's come from Ayer, and maybe that's more explicitly called out in Ayer's version of the film. So maybe that is more of a, it's a problem introduced by the theatrical cut that maybe doesn't exist in the Ayer cut. I would tend to believe it doesn't exist because he's saying it was added in by editors, probably specifically for the cut of the film that was sort of reordered by the people doing the final edit. So interesting. I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I not making a big enough deal about this, or are people making too big a deal? What do you guys think?
Christian, what do you think? You go ahead.
No, I don't think I think you're making the deal of it that you're making of it. Like, it's not, you're not underplaying it and you're not overplaying it either. It probably, God, how many times have we said we're in episode 30 something right now? And even, before the Snyder Cut came out, constantly, what am I saying? Warner Brothers, throw shit against the wall, see if it sticks. Throw shit against the wall, see if it sticks. And I know Johns was a big part of changing the entire focus after, wherever direction they wanted to go to marvelize, quote unquote, the universe. Back in 2018, somebody apparently did notice this, and they noticed the plot hole. And David Ayer said at the time, in quotes, the timeline was changed after filming. That was all he said. Interesting that, like you said, he named Johns, but I agree with Paul. He didn't come out and give two middle fingers and say, fuck him. He didn't do that. But what he did, I think that he wouldn't get named if the Snyder Cut wasn't coming out. Like, if everything hadn't happened that had happened over the last 2 years, I don't think Johns gets named. I think it's just as simple as timeline was changed after filming. That's it. Hey man, this movie was messed with, just like everything else in Warner in the DCEU. They had an idea, they had a guy that was building it. They went off in another direction. We know the story. We know who got screwed. We know who, whatever. Now it seems that it's a lot deeper than we thought, and it's like we've said it before. I didn't necessarily realize that there was this massive push that people really wanted to see the Ayer cut. Apparently, I've been proven wrong, because the more I see online, people really do want to see an alternate cut of this thing.
I want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, now don't get me wrong, Paul. It's not like I don't want to see it. If it gets released, I'm freaking seeing it. I'm just not out there to push for it. But look, it's another bullet in the gun, another arrow in the quiver, or whatever. It's just another conversation about all this shit that just went down after BVS, and they completely went in a different direction and then screwed a guy who lost his kid, and God, they just messed with it. And in the process, it was this constant meddling, this constant studio intervention. It's incredible. It's incredible. And say what you will about the MCU, make fun of Feige, that's fine. We can all have our disagreements. That friggin' and they changed. They've made changes. Spider-Man gets jumped in, that screws things up. Fine. They made changes. But for the most part, that universe goes from beginning to end with minor continuity errors. They just do their thing. And they're going to start splitting off in the multiverse now. Fine. They'll do their thing in the future. Great. The DCU was just like constantly we're just going to change it. We're going to change it. God, what the hell?
Christian, can I jump in for 1 sec? I was just going to say, go ahead. I think part of the reason you were never seeing buzz for the Ayer cut is one, I mean, and we talked about this in the past, that, I mean, Zack Snyder has an unusually
loyal following that's
he's got
done
it,
nothing but grow. But from the perspective of someone who would want to see both, I mean, for me, the Snyder Cut was the priority. It wasn't that I didn't want the Ayer cut; it's that I didn't want the Ayer cut to either A, make us look greedy, or B, detract from the message that we wanted the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, I hear you.
Now that we've got the Snyder Cut coming, it's announced, and not only that, but it seems like we've got a really positive interaction going with AT&T and HBO Max. I mean, they value our business, which is something we haven't experienced in ever, so that I could recall, right? So to have a company that actually values the excitement you create for their product, and they are leading us on, and they're opening that door to other possibilities. So now all of a sudden, this idea that this missing piece of the Snyderverse, of the original DCEU, could be restored to its originally intended version, with its originally intended tone, that's really exciting for people that loved where that universe was going originally. And we talked about this last week as well. For the first time, there's real hope and optimism to get that universe back, or at least some continuation of that universe back, that more in line with what we loved about it originally. And this is a big piece of that. And Ayer has come out and he's vocally advocating for himself, and he said, listen, this deserves to be seen, and it's ready to go, and it's just sitting there with only requiring the most minimal of work, and otherwise it's just sitting wasting in a vault when you could polish it up and put it out there for minimal cost. And I mean, minimal cost when it comes to movies is always relative terms, right? But I think there's an audience for it. I mean, that the original audience for the DCEU was essentially thrown away because they believed that they were going to be able to have their cake and eat it too by courting the Marvel audience. That didn't work. The Marvel audience didn't come, and they alienated a large portion of that original DCU fan base. Well, that DCU fan base that was alienated is now reinvigorated and hungry to get their universe back. And there's an audience for this thing. I think you're starting to see that come out now. Now that we know we've got the Snyder Cut, we're now emboldened to say, hey, this company's given us this. They want to work with us. They care about our business. Let's let them know that we want to see this too, because it's an important component of that early series of films.
Yeah. I agree. I think I'm all for the Ayer cut, getting released. I personally think that it will depend on how the Snyder Cut does. But as Paul has intelligently and wisely said, you begin to sow the seeds for that now. You begin to show interest in that now. And so once the Snyder Cut is successful, then this ball would have already been in motion and rolling. What Ayer posted about Geoff Johns meddling. I mean, Grace Randolph also, she also corroborated that the problem was Geoff Johns meddling, and she has. So for me, I've always known what he did, but I've not known what his motives were. And Grace Randolph, who's she's very keyed in to things like I have my own sources and my own information gathering apparatus, and she seems to have a completely different way in, and we're always our information always seems to coincide and be sort of corroborate each other. So she said that it has to do with just naked ambition, like shameless naked ambition. It's not some impetus for DC to be better or to correct things, or he was just wildly ambitious to the point of villainy. Like, he did a bunch of stuff that just was very unprofessional, very callous on a human moralistic level. It's very strange, and it's kind of shocking for me to realize that it goes back this far, because this thing we're talking about, the change that he made, quote unquote, it's so unnecessary. It's so completely unnecessary. Like, and for you to do that, and for it to be something that breaks the timeline, the continuity and flow of the film, it just reminds me of how, like, there is something wrong with this Geoff Johns guy, and I will forever be on his case until he apologizes and comes out and really makes amends, because what he did goes beyond I'm just doing a job. It seems so personal, so narcissistic, so targeted, so unnecessary that it's really shocking and appalling. I have hardly come across people like I know I've come across a couple people like this in my workplace. And I really think that he needs to apologize for his actions, because basically, you know, illuminating, like, going back on this particular instance, there was no need for Harley Quinn to be involved in the Joker's killing of Robin. There's just no need for it, being that there's a timeline has already been set. So if you make that amendment, you're breaking the timeline. You're meddling and interfering with David Ayer's story and David Ayer's vision. The only reason you should do that is if it's absolutely necessary, and it absolutely is not necessary.
Yeah, so Lupe, that's a great point, because I was saying how it's kind of a trivial change, and I didn't see why it was such a big deal. But the opposite side to that, I think, is even more valid. If it's such a trivial point, why are you screwing with somebody's timeline in the first place, right? Why are you doing that? You know, what if you're adding nothing with your little change? What are you doing? Why are you throwing away someone else's work? Why so disrespectfully?
Yeah. So that's quite the reveal that we got today, and it's just further buttresses the fact that David Ayer was screwed over. Maybe not exactly in the way that Zack Snyder was, maybe not to the extent, but still, he didn't have his vision. And once again, it was Geoff Johns who did it. He seems to be the nexus point of all that is evil and wrong with the DCEU franchise. And thankfully, he's no longer involved. I mean, he's still gainfully employed, and he's doing his thing, telling his own stories wherever he's at. But thankfully, he's no longer involved. And hopefully, going forward, the ship can be righted, and, you know, things, we can have some reconciliation and some closure going forward. So that's it. That's our episode of E&M for the day. It was a lengthy one. It was like a roller coaster. We went serious, we went a little bit technical, then we had a little bit of fun, and it went, you know, each way. But on a serious note, I'm glad that we had this conversation. For you people who are listening, if you've come to the end of this, thank you very much. Leave a comment in the comment section. You could leave Black Lives Matter, or you could leave a question. If you have a question, feel free. We would love to talk to you and engage with you. Christian, where can people find you on social media if they want to talk to you?
And thanks again for a good conversation tonight. And you can find me at both Twitter and Instagram at the same place. It's chart6363.
And Paul.
Yep, same place as always, Twitter at _Paul_P.
All right, and I have been yours truly, Lupe. You can find me on Twitter at LiveLoveLupe. You can find me on the Vero social media app, also at LiveLoveLupe. If you have any questions regarding Black Lives Matter, the Black experience, I'm happy to engage with you faithfully with optimism in those discussions. If you have any questions or you want to talk about, you know, the AyerCuts or HBO Max, drop us a comment. I'm happy to talk about that as well. You guys stay safe. Take care. Remember, coronavirus is still out there, and, you know, we're going through these interesting times. And until the next time on another episode of ENN, stay exiled.